In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to knit a true afterthought heel with spiral decreases. This one is shaped differently to the normal wedge-shaped afterthought heel, and I feel hugs the heel a little bit better. It feels a bit more anatomically correct, it gives you a little bit more depth, and just feels a little bit more comfortable. In this video, we're going to be using the Foxglove socks pattern as our example pattern. When you get to the area where the heel needs to be placed in the pattern, you simply pop in a removable stitch marker. This is normally between 2 and 2.5 inches short of the entire length of the foot, and it shows us where we need to go along and pick up the stitches to create the opening for the heel. To get started, we're going to pick up the right leg of the stitches that we need for our heel. So if you have a look at your sock pattern, this would be half the amount of stitches of the width of your sock. So if your sock is 60 stitches, you'd be picking up 30. If it's 64, you'd be picking up 32, for example. So you're going to be picking them up in a straight line all the way along until you've picked up the right leg of all of the stitches you need for half of your heel. All we have to do now is pick up the final stitch, and we have picked up all the stitches we need for half of our sock. What we're going to do now is we're going to push the needle all the way through so the stitches are then sitting on the cable. We're then going to turn the sock around 180 degrees, and we're going to do the same for the other side, but we're going to make sure that we're leaving one row of knit stitches in between the rows that we're picking up. Again, we're going to go in and we're going to pick up the right leg of each of the stitches the same way we did at the first half of the sock, but making sure that we can see there is one row of knitting in between the two rows of picked up stitches. That's where we're going to snip to create the heel opening. So now we've got all of our stitches picked up, you're going to pull your needle through and you can see you've got two rows of stitches on needles with a row of knitting in between. That's where we're going to snip, and this is the fun part. Now you need to take your scissors and you need to snip a few stitches in the centre of this row of knitting. What is a good idea is to put your hand inside of the sock to make sure that you don't cut through the two layers of fabric. So pop your hand in there and you're just going to snip a couple of stitches in between. What this is going to do, once you've unravelled it, is leave two sets of live stitches on your cables ready for us to pick up and to knit the heel. So you'll then take your darning needle and you will use that just to help you unpick those stitches. So you'll need to do it one way and then the other. And make sure that you do leave the yarn tail a substantial length at either side. So try and snip in the middle because you're going to have to weave this in at the end to ensure that you've got no holes at the side of your heel. Once you've done this, you'll be left with two sets of stitches, one on either side of the needle, that allows you to pick up and to begin knitting. What we're going to do here is we're going to take our contrast yarn. You don't have to take your contrast yarn. You can do it in the same colour or you can do it in a different colour, and we're going to start working the heel. So the way that this heel works is you generally knit a number of rows without any shaping first to give the heel a little bit more depth. So if you find that you've got a higher instep, you may find you may want to add more rows here. If you find the heel a little bit too deep, you can also take away rows. In this example, we're going to be knitting 4 rows of just straight plain knit stitch all the way around, and we're going to be picking up a couple of stitches on either side. You will need to check your pattern to see how many stitches you need to pick up for your size to make sure that the decreases add up. Now we need to continue to knit according to the pattern, which is normally a couple of plain rounds before you start the spiral decreases. You can add and subtract the number of straight knitting rounds before you start the decreases if you have a higher or shallower instep. So in this instance, we've got 4 rounds of just knitting around just to start us off on the heel. And we're going to start doing our decrease rounds here. So this particular size and this particular pattern, it's going to be knit 5, knit 2 together. We're then going to knit 5 rounds just straight stocking stitch. We're then going to knit 4, knit 2 together, knit 4 straight rounds of stocking stitch. We're going to continue like this until we have a small number of stitches at the end, which we're going to graft together. Now we've completed all of our decrease shaping, we're left with a number of stitches that need to be grafted together. I find that this works quite well in terms of cupping the heel, rather than decreasing down to a number where you would just pull the stitches through and cinch it closed. It does wear quite well. So in this instance, we're going to be grafting or Kitchener stitching 9 stitches together. So this is the way that I always remember. I always remember to go purl on the front and keep it on. And then we're going to, as if to knit on the back and keep it on. I then try to get a meditative state into my brain to help me remember. So I always think knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on. So knit off and then purl on. And then on the back needle, purl off and then knit on. And I try to keep this meditative state in my head whilst working on Kitchener stitch. There's only 9 stitches to close here, but again, I just try to keep that flow and not get distracted while I'm working on this. Once you get to the end, you've just got this little end to weave in, and then you simply need to go around and weave in the rest of your ends for your sock. This gives a really nice finish. If you weave it in and give it a little tug, it avoids those kind of rabbit ears that you tend to get with the traditional afterthought heel. Again, it's just one end that needs to be woven in there. So as you can see, you've got a little bit of a flat decrease at the end with that Kitchener stitch and a lovely rounded heel. I find this heel fits really well. I find it wears well, it's comfortable, and there we go, a finished sock.